in all these regions, in all the countries that are now part of Southeast Asia. Malaysia, Thailand, Java, Borneo, Sumatra, now the entire Indonesia, and including the Khmer, what is called the Khmer Republic, the Khmer Dynasty, which is called the Kamboja in Tamil. Okay, the Kamboja Dynasty, which is Cambodia now. And the Champa Dynasty, which was the now Laos and Vietnam. So the entire region was very familiar for both the Tamilians and the people in the Kalinga region. And so there was a lot of politics going on there, and the Cholas and the Kalingas took sides. Sometimes they helped this king and sometimes that king. So it was all for power, it was for expansion of the empire. And both Anantavarman and Kulothunga were really very imperial kings. They had an imperial empire. Their wish was not just capturing more regions in southern India or in up to the Ganga thing, but they were also interested in setting up the trade missions and capturing the trade routes between Southeast Asia and China and India. So both of them had were very big contemporaries and contenders at that point in time on trade in the entire Bay of Bengal and South China Sea.
Good evening, everyone. So today we are having a new session, new webinar on Kalinga history. And the topic today is conflict and cooperation, Chola and Kalinga dynasty in the maritime trade with Southeast Asia and China. And the speaker today is Mr. Raghavan Srinivasan, about whom my friend Sanjay would be reading out a brief introduction. So let me begin this meeting by telling how we choose or how we got to Srinivas sir. It happened so that while watching one YouTube presentation by one channel, I found that Raghavan Srinivasan sir was telling about Kalinga, that like the Chola Empire or like the history of South India, the Kalingan Empire's story has been largely, it remains untold. I mean, not many people are aware about the great empire the Kalinga was once upon a time. So that struck a chord in me, because we are also having the same opinion about our history. Largely outside Odisha, not many people discuss about Odisha's history or its rich maritime trade. So when I found Raghavan Srinivasan sir also telling the same thing, I thought maybe we should invite him to give one talk in our channel. So today we are having him, and he has given such an interesting topic, title of his topic, Conflict and Cooperation, Chola and Kalinga Dynasties. So definitely we'll listen to him. We all have been waiting eagerly towards having today's webinar. I will request my friend Sanjay to kindly read out Raghavan Srinivasan sir's introduction. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Sunil. Mr. Raghavan Srinivasan. Mr. Raghavan Srinivasan is a graduate in chemical engineering from Madras University and a postgraduate in MBA from McMaster University, Canada. After working as a systems analyst for a few years, he was a freelance IT professional before deciding to become an entrepreneur in the social development sector. At present, he is a professional consultant in this area. He lives in New Delhi with his wife and son. He has written and edited a number of documents for governments and the UN system. He has also been editing a magazine called Ghazar Jari Hai for several years now. He has written several cover stories, articles, and travelogues for print and online newspapers. Raghavan is passionately interested in Indian literature, philosophy, and history. He believes that the past of our subcontinent has many clues to help us find our way in these confusing times. His first historical fiction, Yugantar, The Dream of Bharatavarsha, takes shape 2,300 years ago, has been published by Lead Start. Okay, this much I can say. I know this much about him. Okay, Raghavan sir, I request you to present your talk. Mr. Srinivasan, sir, please present
Sir,
your talk.
Raghavan Srinivasan, sir, it is over to you, sir.
Sir, are we audible to you, sir?
Sanjay, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Sunil ji, and thank you, Sanjay ji, for the introduction and then inviting me to this webinar. It's a big honor for me, and I can see that there is a very a group which is very much interested in history and particularly about history of Odisha. And I am I've done a lot of work in history. Besides, while I was a chemical engineer, my interest in history developed a lot, and I also started writing fiction and non-fiction historical books. So, like Sunil ji mentioned, that I had talked about taken part in that Ranveer show, and in passing, we had come to the question of the relationship between the Cholas and the Kalingas, and I had mentioned that the Kalingas have a very rich history, but it is not known to many. I am myself a student of Kalinga history because you have authors among you and you have very well-read people. You know much more about your own region, your kings. I am a student who is still studying. I know a lot about the Chola, Pallava, Pandya histories, but not very much on Kalinga history. So recently, from the time that I have been investigating about the relationship between, particularly during the Chola period, the relationship between the Cholas, the Kalingas, and Southeast Asia. I had done some podcasts in some of the platforms. So I thought when Mr. Sunil ji approached me that an interesting topic could be on this maritime trade with these three regions, and in the area what is called the Maritime Silk Road, like the Silk Road that you have on the road. This is a maritime Silk Road, which is purely on the seas, connecting various ports. Okay, so that is one thing. Before I get into that topic, I would like to say that I read about or heard about Kalingas because our Tamil literature has mentions a lot about them. Whether you know that or not, uh, I am an avid reader of Tamil historical novels, and if you look at the novels, there'll be a lots and lots of interaction and characters from Kalinga, whether it is the Pallava period or the Chola period. You will see that always the relationship between these two regions, the two kings, the two kingdoms, or the two empires, you can say, has always been an important topic of interest to Tamilians. Okay, so that might be of surprising to you, but it is that way. You will see there is one great writer called Kalki, who was, if you read his works, you will find a lot of mention about the empires. So that is one thing. And secondly, I was very intrigued when I went to Kanyakumari district that there was a town called Kalinga Rajapuram. So I inquired about that, and it very well possible that the town was set up at a time when the um, when the extent of the Kalinga Empire reached even up to Kanyakumari. It's quite possible because they were all sea on the eastern coast. They had several ports, both the Kalingas, Cholas, Pandyas. So there's a lot of interaction between them. It's very possible that the Kalingas traveled right up to the southernmost tip of India, okay, besides other countries. Now, here, when I'm taking this topic, it is if you look at the history of both the Tamil region and the Kalinga region, it is huge. So you have to sort of limit it to a particular period. I'm limiting it to the 11th and the 12th centuries. Okay. So, and particularly even within that, I'm limiting it to the reign of Kulothunga Chola on this side, on the Chola side, and Anantavarman Chodaganga on the Kalinga side, because they were contemporaries. So we will get into more and more. And together they ruled for a very long time, and there was an overlap. The two of them together ruled for 40 years as contemporaries. So you can see that, it's a long period, 40 years. If you look at prime ministers and presidents of countries, and 40 years they had been ruling, then the same two person are neighboring. Kalinga is a neighbor of the Tamil region. So you can see that there would have been a lot of interaction. So I would like to concentrate on that period and look at what's happening, what kind of political, economic, and the cultural situation existed during that time. And there are several controversies, of course, because if you look at history books, you will have different points of view. Tamil history authors and Tamil poets will talk a lot about Tamil kings and their greatness. Similarly, the Kalinga history authors and Kalinga poets will talk a lot about the Kalinga history. So you'll have to sort of objectively look at both and see what is right. And the right thing is evidence-based. You have to, whatever we say about history, we need to prove it with evidence. Either you have archaeological evidence, or you have inscriptional evidence, or you have documentary evidence. So if you don't have any of this, then we can keep on talking about history, but without a proper objective base. So whatever I have studied, I have checked the documents, I've tried to find out the evidence, and there's a lot of information available. Particularly if you look at more on the Chola side, I would say that if you look at this maritime trade between the three regions, Chola, Kalinga, and Southeast Asia, there is a nice book called From Nagapattanam to Swarnadvipa. Swarnadvipa is the name that is given to Sumatra. It is an island of gold. And so the three regions, the Kalingas, the Cholas, and Southeast Asia had a very long period of interaction. And you can see evidence existing both from the Kalinga side and the Chola side in all these regions, in all the countries that are now part of Southeast Asia. Malaysia, Thailand, Java, Borneo, Sumatra, the entire Indonesia, and including the Khmer, what is called the Khmer Republic, the Khmer Dynasty, which is called the Kamboja in Tamil. Okay, the Kamboja Dynasty, which is Cambodia now. And the Champa Dynasty, which was the now Laos and Vietnam. So the entire region was very familiar for both the Tamilians and the people in the Kalinga region, for I would say Odisha. So there was a lot of interaction. So now I will be taking these three. We are going back about 1,000 years, because Kulothunga Chola and Anantavarman Chodaganga lived in the second part of they ruled in the second part of the 11th century to the early 12th century. So I will take these three contemporaries. The contemporary on that side, Southeast Asia, is more, I would say, in Cambodia and not so much in Malaysia, because in Malaysia and in Java, there were various regimes. But in Cambodia, what's called Kamboja, there were kings called Jayavarman VI and then followed by Suryavarman II. Suryavarman II is the one who built that Angkor Wat complex. So, looking at all the three people, first let us take the Chola dynasty, the Kulothunga Chola. He ruled from 1070 to 1122, quite a long period, 52 years. And at that period in time, his great grandfather was RajarajaChola. His grandfather was Rajendra Chola, who invaded the Southeast Asia and defeated the Srivijaya Empire. So he sort of acquired a already well-established empire with a lot of influence in surrounding areas up to Sri Lanka. So when he came to power in 1070, he came to power in a very disturbed period, because there were no. He was not a proper hereditary king. He was not the son of the previous. He was not the direct lineage of the Cholas. What had happened was that the Cholas had married into their daughters, had married into the both the Eastern Chalukyan dynasty and the Vengi dynasty. And so there was one lineage coming from there. So when there was no heir, proper hereditary heir for the Chola Empire, the Kulothunga Chola came all the way from that dynasty to take over power here. So it was a very disturbed period, I would say. He was not a direct descendant. And he actually was a prince in Chhattisgarh in Bastar district before becoming the Chola king. So you can imagine. And he must have had a lot of interaction with the Orissa region, because Chhattisgarh, he was a king there, and he must have he knew the local language and so on. So now on the Orissa side, the Kalinga side, it is Anantavarman Chodaganga. He came to power in 1078, and again his reign was very long, till 1147. So imagine more than 60 years, nearly 70 years of reign. So there was a long period of 40 years when both these kings, Anantavarman Chodaganga and Kulothunga, were contemporaries. And interestingly, both were related also, because at that period in time, there was a lot of intermarriages, dynasty marriages. So Rajendra Chola's granddaughter married into the Eastern Chalukyan dynasty and the Vengi dynasty. And same way, Anantavarman Chodaganga also had a relationship with the Eastern Chalukyan dynasty. So in a way, they say that Kulothunga was grandson of Rajendra, and Anantavarman was great-grandson of Rajendra. That is, he is the nephew to Kulothunga. So they were actually related. And they came from, though there was a mixture of Eastern Chalukya and Eastern Ganga dynasty and the Chola dynasty, all three were actually, they had a very long period of relationship. Imagine that RajarajaChola died in somewhere around 1014. So during that entire period, when the Chola Empire was there and when the Kalinga Empire was also side by side existing, there was a lot of interaction. So that is one reason why there were both conflicts and cooperation between the two, which I'll come to. The third one was Jayavarman I, 6 and Suryavarman II in the Khmer, what is called the Khmer kingdom, which is Cambodia, that Kamboja. And they had relationship both with the Kalingas and with the Cholas, sometimes siding with the Cholas, sometimes with the Kalingas, same as the Srivijayan Empire. Srivijayan Empire also had relationship with both. And so there was a lot of politics going on there, and the Cholas and the Kalingas took sides. Sometimes they helped this king and sometimes that king. So it was all for power, it was for expansion of the empire. And both Anantavarman and Kulothunga were really very imperial kings. They had an imperial empire. Their wish was not just capturing more regions in southern India or in up to the Ganga thing, but they were also interested in setting up the trade missions and capturing the trade routes between Southeast Asia and China and India. So both of them had were very big contemporaries and contenders at that point in time on trade in the entire Bay of Bengal and South China Sea. So it is a very important period, and it requires a lot of study in terms of economics, trade, politics, and so on. So I'll try to cover a bit of that. I'll show you maps later. After I hope I will finish by about 8 o'clock. I will quickly show some maps of these regions and the sea routes and all that. And after that, we can have questions and answers. Now, going into the question of conflict and cooperation, So let us first, before going into Southeast Asia and before talking about that maritime trade there, let us talk about these two regions within South India. You would have heard that originally it was thought that urbanization in the south came only after urbanization in the north. But more and more archaeological evidence is pointing out that in the south also the urban cities sprang up as much as in the north. In the north, the urban cities, apart from the Indus Valley civilization, which was called the first urbanization, that vanished. That vanished about 3,500 years ago. But the next, what is called the second urbanization, setting up of cities, started around the time of Buddha, because Buddha himself lived in a republic. And there was a period when a big churning was going on, and small tribal republics were giving way to big empires, and therefore big cities were growing. So all this Mathura, Hastinapura, and Ayodhya and all were coming into being. So now archaeological discoveries say that the cities in Orissa and Tamil Nadu are also as old. They can be traced back. Recent archaeological evidence at least points to 4th century before the Common Era. That is 2,400 years back. And slowly the date is getting pushed even back. So it's quite possible that even 2,600 years back, there was urbanization and there was the use of metal, steel, and so on in both the Kalinga region and the Tamil region. So you can imagine that when two big powers are there side by side, the Kalinga region broadly, when it was a stable empire, it extended between the Godavari and the Ganga. And the Chola Empire, when it was at its peak, extended below the Godavari River. So there were two major powers controlling a huge amount of space and region and controlling a huge amount of trade. So naturally, there'll be tension and cooperation, because in that period, the intent of the king was always that I should capture more power. I have to, if a king doesn't go to war with others, then that dynasty will get decimated. So it was no king could get out of that political confrontation, that they had always had to be at war. So that is why you will hear about a number of wars. So I'm not talking about the one which the Mauryan Empire waged is one big war at the time, and later on Caravela and his empire. But this one I'm talking about the 11th century and the beginning of the 12th century. It was a very important period when trade was developing enormously, and the sea trade between Arabia to China was basically controlled by three big powers. That is the Kalinga, the Cholas, and the Southeast Asian empires. By that time, the Srivijayan Empire had almost gone out of existence, because you will hear a lot about the Srivijayan Empire of Southeast Asia, which was based in Malaysia, the mainland Malaysia. After that war that this Rajendra Chola waged on the Srivijayan Empire, he wiped out many of the ports, they say, on the Malaysian coast, both the eastern and the western ports. So therefore, the other kingdoms like Cambodia and Java started rising as big powers and started controlling the trade between China. So there was a contention between the Kalingas having direct access to the Chinese market and the Cholas having direct access to the Chinese market. So that determined the trade, the importance of trade in that region, because the Chinese market is very huge. And not only that, the Arabian goods reaching up to China through that route called the Maritime Silk Road had to go through the southern coast of India, through Sri Lanka, and then go to the Malaysia. If you see the sea route, they could not go directly to Java, because the Sunda Strait, which is between Java and Malaysia, is a very sort of between Java and Indonesia and Malaysia, is a strait which is very narrow and very dangerous to navigate during monsoons. So most of the ships, even very large ships, avoided the Sunda Strait, which is at the southernmost tip of Malaysia. Okay. Instead they went north. So therefore, even the Chola ships had to go north, to Burma, which at that point in time the Pagan dynasty was ruling Burma, and then go to Andaman and Nicobar, and then go through the Malacca Strait and go through the strait and then reach China. So entire trade was controlled by that strait, and who dominated, in whose hands that Malacca Strait belonged to, was the contention. Like I told you, the Tamil novels which I've read is always about, how that war, how that controlled the relationship between the Kalingas and the Cholas. And always there will be confrontation, there'll be wars. So there were two big wars, they say, between Kulothunga and Anantavarman. Both were undecided. One happened in 1097 and the other one happened in 1110. So they were very big wars. And the 1110 war, they say, caused a lot of damage to both sides. While the Tamil poets, there is one big poem called Kalingat Parani in Tamil, which describes that war. Okay, so you can imagine the importance of Kalinga for the Tamil poets. And Kalingat Parani is about how Kulothunga vanquished Kalinga, because as a Tamil poet, they were pretty eager to please the Kulothunga, the Chola king. And it describes how, why that war took place, and, what kind of damage took place, and the soldiers fighting and so on. Now, leaving apart that aspect of who won or who lost, if you see, it was a very sort of a war which caused a lot of damage to the people all the way. And it caused a lot of damage to trade. And finally, nobody won or lost, because Anantavarman continued to be king of Kalinga, and Kulothanga continued to be the king, and they were going about their business later on after the war too. While the Tamil historians may claim that Cholas won, and the Kalinga historians may claim that the Kalingas won the war. I would say that because the two kings continued to rule, nobody got wiped out. Both the regions, they went back to their regions and continued their work. So one issue that is there always is that while there was so much space for cooperation between the Kalingas and the Cholas, because the sea route was more or less common, and they had so many ports on the eastern coast, and both of them had a common interest. That is, the common interest was to trade both with Southeast Asian countries who were themselves quite powerful kingdoms, and also to trade with the Chinese. The Chinese at that time had the Song dynasty, and the Chinese market was very huge. And again, one more issue was that the Arabians trading with the Chinese had to go through this route. So they had so much to gain by cooperation. And I'm sure that that entire period, 40 years, many years would have seen cooperation to one level. At the same time, there were also these wars every now and then, because they had, it was an uneasy kind of cooperation, and uneasy neighbor, both of them having the same imperial ambitions. Finally, the people suffered. And while that is one thing that we have to learn. So at the end of my discussion, I'll come to that aspect of what is its relevance today to today's politics. Now, let me move a bit ahead because I'm taking quite a bit of time. The trade routes, like I have already pointed out, and I will show you the maps also, there was a lot of area which was common, and the market was common, and the ambitions were also common. The goods were also probably quite common, because textiles, spices were common goods which the South India exported to all these markets. And the imports could have also been quite, say, similar kind of imports. So there's a lot of things I could say about how were they able to achieve this, and what kind of naval fleet they had, what kind of technology they had, what kind of shipbuilding facilities they had. But I don't think I'll have too much time. Very briefly, I will say that they had extensive knowledge about the sea routes, and at that time there was no compass. See, the magnetic compass was invented in China much earlier, but to be used in sea routes for sailing was done much later in China. My guess is that by the time of the Cholas and the Kalinga, the Eastern Ganga dynasty of Anantavarman, the magnetic compass technology should have come to both the Chola ships and the Kalinga ships. But nevertheless, they were very adept. They had a very good understanding of astronomical stars and directions. They had a very good understanding of the monsoons. The shipbuilding technology was quite well developed. And at the same time, I would say that Southeast Asia also had very good shipbuilding facilities. And so they could travel such long distances. Imagine that Europeans took much later to travel such long distances. They came to India, they discovered America much later than Indians. And they were very surprised at how Indians could navigate these high seas during at the time of monsoon, and have such good knowledge of the astronomical, the tides, and the ship navigating the ships. So, and one more thing is that both the Kalingas and Cholas, if you see, they were interested in trade, but trade can happen only with the naval might. So they had a very strong navy to go with, and so that would require then transporting a lot of soldiers, people, equipment, arms, food, and so on. So this is one important aspect of both of them having that technology. And in this whole thing, uh, there were these trade guilds, which played an important part. Because when to do trade with another country, you cannot have just individual ships going and doing trade. For to do trade, you need to have an association. You need to have a guild of traders. And that guild in both the Chola Empire and the Kalinga Empire was very powerful. There was a guild in the Chola Empire called Ainu Truvar. The meaning of Ainu Truvar is it's a guild of 500. So maybe originally there were 500 members, large members in that. In Karnataka, it is called Aihole Guild. And I am trying to find out whether these guilds were very active in the Kalinga region. They must be, because without the guilds, you cannot do trade with other countries. Now, these are all very well-established procedures. The guild had own ships, they had mariners, they had their own security arrangements, they had warehouses in Tamil Nadu, Kalinga region, and Karnataka and Andhra. And in this they were well-guarded warehouses. And not only that, the trade association set up colonies in Southeast Asia. Now there is a lot of inscriptions and archaeological evidence available from Cambodia to Java, all the Southeast Asian countries, that there were many settlements of Tamils and others in that entire region. In fact, Kalingas celebrate this, Bali Jatra, where it is said that a group of traders, including religious missions, went to Bali. And the first settlement in Bali was done by the people of Orissa. So these are all, more and more facts are coming out. So religion played an important role in India and in Cholas and the Kalingas establishing their foothold in Southeast Asia. Trade followed along with religion, because religion alone cannot enter unless you have trade and unless you have something to support you, including an army. For all practical purposes, the spread of Buddhism and Hinduism to Southeast Asia was fairly peaceful. There is no evidence yet that these kings imposed that religion on Southeast Asia, but one never knows, because they had military might, and they had a naval fleet, they had trade interests. So therefore, cultural and religious, the spread of culture and religion, so much it influenced Southeast Asia, is still being investigated, and that whole thing is called Indianization of Southeast Asia. So when you would often hear that. And what does that mean? That means that regions went from India to Southeast Asia, and trade delegations went, and colonies of Indians were set up in the Southeast Asian countries. So that whole Indianization happened in that whole region. So you will find that there are many temples there even now, and many temples are built. Their architectural remains are still available. Inscriptions are available still, and you will find that many of the kings and empires that had Indian names, like Srivijaya, Vijayotunga Varman was the king of Srivijaya. Jayavarman was the king of the Khmer dynasty, and so on. And their cities also had Indian names like Kadaram, and South Indian names like Kadaram and Yashodarapura, and so on. So Sanskrit and Tamil and Oriya, all of them traveled along with this trade delegations and religion to Southeast Asia, and they influenced the culture very much. They influenced trade there, they influenced politics, they influenced the way of life, and so many things. So it was only later on that both the influence of Islam and China um, became much more larger than the influence of South India on these countries. So after that, the period has been one of if you see that after the Chola Empire and the Kalinga Empire came to an end, and after the uh, other South Indian empires like the Vijayanagara Empire came to an end, so there was no single force which could keep these trade routes running or these cultural exchanges going on. And by that time, the entire region, including South India, was colonized by the British. And during that entire period of the British, there was very little cultural exchange between these regions. So now when you look back, the one aspect is the lack of unity in the South caused this invasion by the British, colonization by the British, and the lack of unity among the southern regimes and the kings and the empires caused a lot of erosion in the kind of influence or in the kind of cultural exchanges they had with other countries of the region. So now you have to pick up strings from where that was left in the before the colonial period, and there is a lot of things that need to be done. So the both the Kulothunga and Anantavarman did a lot of things. I'm not saying that they were very great kings. They were very good in administration. They built temples. They sort of at the time of Kulothunga, there was a lot of religious conflict, they say, because there was a conflict between the Shaivites and Vaishnavites a lot. And that conflict between Shaivite and Vaishnavites traveled to Southeast Asia also. So that is one theory, and that we need to investigate. That the Srivijaya Empire was Vaishnavite and the Khmer regime was Shaivite, and therefore they divided. There was internal dissension between them. That is one thing. And in the Chola regime, the Shaivites, for the Cholas, the Shaivism was the most important religion that they observed. See, in those days, Hinduism as one religion was not integrated into that integrated as we see today. So there were sects at that time, either Shaivites or Vaishnavites or other sects, along with Buddhism, which also traveled to Southeast Asia. So therefore, you will see a big part of Southeast Asia, which has some parts of Buddhist influence, some parts of Shaivite, some part of Vaishnavite influence. And accordingly, the names and the temple structure, the type of the style and all that follow that. So both the kings were probably popular kings. They encouraged trade, they encouraged economic growth and so on. But at the same time, it was full of they had imperial ambitions. There were frequent wars, and therefore you can imagine that there would have been a lot of suffering for the ordinary people, because every time a war happens, entire crops get damaged and people get looted and houses get burnt, and it is the ordinary people who become soldiers and like cannon fodder, they say. They are put in the front of the war, and it is they who lose most during wars. So now coming to all these issues and the long-term impact of the two regimes, the Chola and the Kalinga, we can see that their influence spread far and wide. They have left their impression on their own in South India as well as in Southeast Asia, as well as Lanka. Lanka was for quite a long, about almost 100 years, it was under Chola rule, the northern part of Lanka. Similarly, Kalinga had certain parts of Lanka under its control. So it had an impact on all these countries. And during this period, it is this period where agriculture developed to its height, where steel and metallurgy developed, where bronze and brass uh, sculptures and temple building and were done on a very large scale. So all this indicate that there was a lot of resources, powerful regimes, probably some of the most powerful in the world at that point in time, um, and controlling the most powerful trade route in the world, if you ask me, because the other trade route was the land route from China to Persia, and that is the land Silk Route. Whereas the maritime Silk Road was controlled by these regimes. So we have a lot to learn from their history and culture, and learn some things positive and not repeat the negative ones. Now coming to uh, my thought on this, one, like I've already said, that the entire period had been one of cooperation and conflict. And if there had been cooperation between the two regimes, so much could have happened for the people. And the colonizers could not have come in. It would have been because until that period when the regimes were strong, there was no external invasion. That is one point for the future for us to learn, that only through cooperation you can withstand external enemies. And by cooperating in trade, you establish relationship. And that Indianization, which we talk about on Southeast Asia, was not a forced Indianization. There were points in time, like they say that a few decades the Cholas held the Sri Vijayan Empire, but then they came back. And whether it was the Indianization was done with violence or non-violence through the religious route, I think it was a mix of both. But it was not an out colonization, because if it had been an outright colonization, then one would have set up structures there and government there and led the government. But unlike the British colonial era, the Indianization was done with uh, finally putting those kings in power and not really directly. There was no direct rule either by the Cholas or the Kalingas. So that is one aspect of Indianization. Now, when we look at today, what's happening in the region, when today you have trade structures like ASEAN, and India is a part of ASEAN, and there is a lot of trade going on between India, China, and Southeast Asia. If you really look at, there is a most important trading area for India, and therefore strengthening cultural relations and other relations is very, very important. But what we find now is more a stress on trade relations rather than cultural relations. It is mostly, it is talked about so many $billion of exports and imports, but really, what is the relationship between these countries? We cannot now go back to the past. We cannot go back and talk about India's superiority in terms of culture and religion, and that Indianization happened in Southeast Asia, because now there is no longer, Southeast Asia has its own countries now, free countries. They follow their own rule, they have their language and all that, which may be very, that script and language may be quite related to our script and languages, but nevertheless, they are on their own. And therefore, when you build a relationship with those countries, the positive aspects of history have to be used. So that is one aspect I feel that we should keep in mind. Okay, so I would like to close my thing with showing a few 4 or 5 maps if there is some time. What I wanted to show was that the sea routes, the most important ports along the eastern coast of Orissa, as well as along the eastern coast of the Chola Empire. I also wanted to show the sea routes from Palur in Orissa to to the Southeast Asian countries, and from Nagapattinam in the Chola Empire to the Southeast Asian countries. So perhaps I can forward these images to you, and we can later on
Yes, sir. Yes.
put it up, add them to the video in
Sure.
YouTube.
Sure.
Now there are a few maps, and also I also wanted to show a map of the Southeast Asian kingdoms at that point in time when we are talking about the 11th and 12th century, the different kingdoms there. So that is one, that is again another map. So these established that there was a lot of trade, and the major players, political players at that point in time. So let me end this. Now it is now 8 o'clock. So we can open questions, and perhaps that will be more interesting to answer questions. And
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving such a engrossing presentation. And we'll now go to our question and answer session. Before that, I just want to ask you two questions, sir. This Kalinga to Parani, that song that you were referring, I was checking, and there is a Tamil version available for download. Is there any English version of that poem?
yes,
I
there
have
is
read
an
that.
English translation.
Yeah, sir, I have read Kalinga Tipparani. I was very thrilled when you were talking about it. I'm sorry, I just gate crashed into your and Sunil Shah's conversation. Kalinga Tipparani actually was very poignant, and like it was so vividly like the description was so vivid and so gory. Actually, I couldn't even finish reading the entire thing. It is one of the most detailed like version of a war and its aftermath, and what happened during and aftermath that we can ever imagine being described, you know.
Very
So
true.
yeah, but yeah, like okay, I'm sorry, I like please continue, Sunil sir.
Yeah, that is available in English, and we'll have to read that with a pinch of salt, because that is from a Tamil poet talking about the victory of Kulatunga. It is about that war of 1110. And Parani generally means in Tamil, it is a genre of poetry where it is in praise of a king who has killed 1,000 elephants. So you can see the gory nature of war. The war was very like that, you know, it was always caused so much of uh, destruction. So the Paranis are written for kings who waged one big war against their enemies. So that Kalingat Parani is a uh, victory over Kalinga, and it is the description of that. So uh, that is why when we look at poets of a particular area, we may get some things out of that period, you know. They describe that period, they describe the war, all that is fine, but we have to dig more into finding out what really happened, what was the cause of the war, you know, what was the main purpose, because the poets will not tell what is the purpose of that. They will praise the king for, you know, the kings are there only to wage wars for them. So
Like you're telling
I
the
can send the PDF.
golden coconut. For each poem, the king used to offer one golden coconut to the bard.
That's right. That's true. During the Sangam period, there were so many bards. It seems that every king had in his palace 2 or 3 bards sitting, and they have to keep on praising him. So when you read our Sangam poems, you know, there are about 152 poets who wrote the Sangam poems. There'll be a lot of contradiction, but at the same time, historically, they're a big resource for us, because even though they will mention a list of kings, each poet will mention a list of kings in a different way, but we have to put them together. Historians have studied all of them and understood, and therefore constructed that entire chronology of kings using those poems. So same way, now we'll have to take poems with a pinch of salt. They may not be all true, but they give some aspect of history, some truth.
Okay, sir, before moving on to the question and answer session, I just want to add one little information. When you said that the Chola kings had a connection with Chhattisgarh and also Bastar region, So Koraput is also integral part of that Bastar to Tamil Nadu. If you have look at geographically, this also comes in the way. There is one anthropologist of Koraput. His name is Cornel Das. He has written one book where he has exactly pinpointed the timing during the Chola kingdom. He has written that the Cholas had a outstation in Koraput for capturing elephants, because the elephants that were available in Koraput were rather small in size, and because it was easy to maneuver them in a war field, so they had outstation here to capture elephant and then send them all the way to the Chola kingdom. So
that is true.
he has also
I think
given
so.
he has also given certain proofs, like there is one place called Anchologuma. So that Chola, the Chola refers to the Chola kingdom. So he has already published his work also.
Right.
Okay, now
So that is true. There is a mention of the Chola kings getting elephants from Kalinga because of a particular variety of elephants. And also looking at the interaction between Cholas and Kalingas, the ports of Kalingas on that, like Puri and Palur, they were much more deeper. They had deeper harbors. They were ideal for big ships, and they were ideal. They had a very steady, they were steady tide to anchor the ships. Whereas the Chola ports had a lot of problem. From Nagapattinam to the south, if you see, it was all monsoon. Either the Chola ships from Nagapattinam had to go north to Palur and then take a route through Burma, the coast of Burma and West Bengal, Burma and all that. Or they had to go to south up to Sri Lanka and then go eastwards. So there were two routes available to the Chola. So that is one reason why they say that the Cholas were very eager to capture this Palur as a port. Because with that in control, then they can launch big ships, anchor big ships.
Okay. So now we will move on to the question and answer session. I will request Preeta ma'am to manage the question and answer session. Over to you, Preeta madam.
Sure, Sunil sir. I would request all participants today, whoever has a question or anything to say to Raghavan sir, please use the hand raise button. Or if you cannot use that and unmute yourself, then please write your question in the chat box. We can ask on behalf of you. Please use the hand raise button. Okay, I see Captain Vasant's hand raise. Sir, please unmute yourself and please.
Hello, Raghavan. I'm Captain Vasant. Can you hear me?
Hi, Vasant. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So I'm very
Vasant,
fascinated
by the
to
way,
hear.
is my schoolmate.
Just introduce myself. Just introduce Raghavan. You introduce myself to others. You introduce.
Yeah. He's my classmate and my schoolmate, and he has decades of experience as a captain in shipping. So he is very interested in this issues connected to maritime trade and maritime shipping. So that is one brief introduction. Now he teaches in shipping. He teaches. He's a professor. So Vasant, you can talk.
Hello. Good evening to everybody. All of you can hear me?
Basant sir, welcome sir. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
We'd love to see your face. Kindly switch on your camera.
Okay. Okay. Can you see me, please?
Yeah.
I'll adjust my camera.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was very fascinated. It was very important. I really enjoyed the speech given by Raghavan. Well done, Raghavan. It was a very nice speech. I was inspired in such a short time. Well, Raghavan, you have told that how important were Cholas, Kalingas, and East Asian experts were those days. They may be powerful rulers and they must have ruled the country well. That was in the 11th century. That's correct?
Yeah.
11th, 12th centuries. And he told the trade was there, iron, steel, everything. But
Yes.
what we heard, that means there should have been steel ships those days. But what we are taught today is steel ship was started only in the 18th century.
Hmm.
So maybe
No, there
these
was,
things, I think maybe these things all were existent. Maybe they were destroyed. Is it possible?
no, there were no steamships.
Steel,
The steel,
no, ship made of wood. Yeah, steel ships. Because
steel,
I heard before
no,
19th century, ships were made of wood.
yeah. All the Chola and the Kalinga ships were made of wood only.
Okay.
And the wood was, planks were tied together by tight ropes.
Okay.
Okay. And so that is how they constructed the bottom of the ship and the hull and the
Okay.
sides of the ship.
And the ship
And-
must be traveling by sails only. Sail.
Yeah,
How the
right.
ship was moving? By sail.
By sail only, by sails.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that is the reason why throughout the year they cannot
Okay.
make the journey. There were specific periods in time when they can take a ship to Southeast Asia. So they calculated very carefully of a particular monsoon, tide, the stars, and so on, a proper alignment.
Possible, yes.
And within that period, they had to travel. So that is why when once you reach Southeast Asia, you have to wait for the next monsoon tide to come back. Otherwise, it was not like today where you can go anytime and then come back. Similarly, from Southeast Asian ports, when the ships went, Andaman and Nicobar Islands was one stop, where at that time Nicobar was called Nakaram Islands.
Okay.
Okay, and they were again owned. At one time, the Cholas captured. At another time, the Kalingas captured Nakaram. So, because that is one important point for refueling or food for the ships. Okay, because ships have to be, they have to take enough rice, water, fresh water, and all that for the journey. And from there, they used to go to that Malacca Strait and land again in the ports. Like there was a port called Palembang. There is a port called Kadaram, which is Kedah now in Malaysia. So they will land there and then again go from there to China. On the way to China, they can also land in Java and in Cambodia. So if you see, I will later on send you the map. A lot of ports on the way, which the Indian mariners, both the Kalingas and the Cholas, were very familiar with those ports. And they could manage the ships. And that is the reason why in 1025, that is in the 11th century, RajarajaChola could take a naval fleet and destroy 14 ports of the Srivijayan Empire within a very short period, because they had very good knowledge of all these ports and the infrastructure and all that, and they had colonies of merchants living there also.
Thank you. Very, very interesting to know those days itself. We are good sailors even.
Yeah.
It would have been good challenging. So long way
Very
very
challenging.
challenging.
Yeah.
And now also Malacca Strait is very important shipping still today.
Right.
And I've been to all these things. After what you're saying is correct. I can see Buddhist temples and all. A lot of this Buddhist culture,
Yes.
that Dasavadaram temples, all are there. Still. Thank you.
Thank you, Basant sir. मैडम ମୁଁ ଖାଲି ଗୋଟିଏ ଏଇଟା କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛି। ସୁନୀଲ ପଟ୍ଟନାୟକ ସାର୍ ଜଏନ୍ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ସାର୍ ନମସ୍କାର। ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ମ୍ୟୁଟ୍ ଅଛି ବୋଧେ?
Sir, mute nahi. I think audio connected nahi. So,
Sir, Sunil Patnaik is an archaeologist from Odisha, and he also heads one institution, Odisha Maritime and some South Asian institute. So I had requested him to join, and in fact he has joined now. Sir, ଟିକେ କଣ କୁହନ୍ତୁ? Sunil sir.
I think his mic is not working.
No, he's sir, ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଆଉ ଥରେ ଅନ୍ କରିବାକୁ ପଡ଼ିବ କାରଣ ଆମର ଅଡ଼ିଓଟା ଭିଜିବଲ୍ ନାହିଁ. Like you have to select the join with cellular data or something. ନମସ୍କାର ସାର୍, ପ୍ରଥମତଃ ସରି ନମସ୍କାର. ଆପଣ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜଏନ୍ କଲେ, I think there was an option where there was like join with cellular data, another one that you had to click so that the audio would be active. Sir, could you please write something in the chat? We will speak it on behalf of you. Sunil Patnaik sir's like research and work and his publications are like a golden treasure trove for like researchers like us. Like he has done years and years of real field work and contributions to Odisha's Buddhist heritage, maritime heritage, and a lot more stuff. I wish his audio gets connected so that uh, before it gets connected, sir, are you able to? Sir, could you please say something, Sunil sir?
It is not. Yeah, it is not
Now we
audible.
can hear you, sir. Now we can hear you.
I hear you. Okay. Thanks, many thanks, Raghavan sir. It's a very good discussion. I enjoyed the whole talk. I was there, but in others' name, because my phone not working. Okay. Really, Kulatunga and another woman, Kulatunga, that's a war, a turning point in Kalingan history. Actually, that war fought for Visakhapatnam port. For Visakhapatnam, actually, Kulatunga Chola established Visakhapatnam port. And after that, our Ganga, they captured that port. Then there is a fight. And before Cholas, Kalinga had a very good maritime trade. I have written so many articles, even maritime Silk Route article is there in the net, and books are there also. Herman Kulke also wrote many things. So Kalinga and Chola, and I am working also in collaboration with Tamil Nadu Archaeology. Here it is a very good area of discussion, area of research. Many things like shipbuilding, traditional knowledge, everything is there in the East Coast. Right now I am sitting in Palur because right now I'm working in Palur, and we are excavating this site. So before Kolotunga, for 1,000 years more, we had right from Kharvela, because Kharvela they went up to Pandyan country. From that day onwards, we had the tribal of Buddhism. We have tribal of actually there is a very good empire called Sailadhavas. They had carved a very good empire and they built. It is said, not yet concretely proved, but it is said, believed, the Sailendra Empire was established by the Sailadhavas. There are so many stories are there. Likewise, this Sri Lanka, Kalinga, and Cholos, Nagipatna, Pumpuhar, and Kaviripatnam, all these areas, because they once upon a time even more prosperous than today. Palur, Tamilipti, then Visakhapatna, Gopalpatna, Muslipatna, Kaviripatna, then Kanchipuram or Pallava, that port, and Kaviripatna, Nagipatna. These are the major ports in Eastern India, East Coast. And all are sometimes, somewhere, they are getting patronized by the port, the rulers of these areas. So, Kalinga Tupurani, this literature, they had a very good description about this war. And incidentally, we had a victory pillar in our Mahendragiri Hill. Cholo, they set up a victory pillar in Mahendragiri Hill. Mahendragiri Hill always, it is one of the major watch point. It is a benchmark for Southeast Asia. So there are so many things, so many historical, pronouncements there, and the detailed study was taken by Raghavan about very interesting. At that moment, another one was not yet conquered the imperial, the core area of Odisha. We were still at Bansadhara River, Mukhalingam. Their capital was Mukhalingam. They to core area of Odisha around 1100, 12 like that. 1100, yeah, 12 or something like that. So, so this area is very rich, and our history is not known yet. We are working on that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Sunil. But next,
I
sir.
just want to add that while we are talking about the period of Anantavarman and Kulothunga, the relationship with Southeast Asia was much older, because even at the time of Megasthenes, they mentioned
Yes.
ports and trade between the Romans and between and China on both sides. And that map of Erythraean Sea lists all the ports on both the eastern and the western coast. So, which is all about 2,200 years back. So, sea time, maritime trade and maritime travel has been a part of Indian culture for thousands of years, more than 2,000 years. So, therefore, there must have been trade. So, more and more, they are digging up the archaeological evidence for all these things. And that is the reason why that whenever I also felt that while there's a lot of inscriptions available of the Pallava regime and the Chola regime, not enough has yet been found in Orissa. Now they are discovering. The more archaeological evidence appears, it will also become clear that in Orissa it was as much development or as much of thing as the Pallavas or the Cholas or even before that. A lot of contention, in fact, between who first took Buddhism and Hinduism to Southeast Asia. Is it people from Orissa or from Tamil Nadu? So but it must have happened simultaneously, because you find colonies and all the Bali Jatra and all that point to a lot of migration from this eastern coast to the Southeast Asian country.
Totally. Yes. Eastern coast played a major role.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sunil Patnaik sir, for your valuable insight. Thank you, Raghavan sir, for adding on to that. And if I may, can I just add a little bit what you said about that? Like inscriptions and all, we are yet to discover are things which are buried under mounds or under the sea also, because the sea level has risen and all. We are yet to find. But our story, by serendipitous moments, people like me, just common people, not even having an archaeological or historical background, just because of the love of reading or communicating with people, I have just by a pleasant accident reached upon certain books and records from other people, like Javanese. The ancient Javanese have records in which they have said that the first people from the Indian subcontinent who they got introduced to were the Kellings. Because of the Kellings, they knew India, and the Kellings were ardent Shaiva worshippers. Because of the Kellings or the Klings, Shaivism came to Java. And this is all much older than the time period that today's discussion was about. So, actually, we do have records in other people's records. So, we are not yet fortunate enough to find our mentions in all the scattered records. Slowly, we'll find that also. Okay, now, that is what I wanted to add. And this is what I told was from John Crawford's English translation of the ancient Javanese texts. Now, before we go on to the next question, if I may also add Captain Vasan sir's question and your discussion with him, at the end of our question and answer, if I may add, like I have chanced upon certain research papers on JSTOR and other resources, that I can read a little bit of excerpts about the Kunlun bows that have descriptions about how the ships were. But we will wait till the end and we will take questions for Raghavan sir first. So, any more questions? Please raise your hand, or anything you wanted to discuss with.
Preetaji, I just want to add that the nomenclature that they used there, that so they use clings for Kalinga, and that seems to be the oldest mention of in inscriptions. And then during the Pallava time, they gave a particular name, and the Chola period they gave a particular name for the South Indians. For them, on that other side of the sea, it did not matter much who came from which area. It was at that particular point in time when who dominated the trade. So the nomenclature kept changing. So, like you say, there were parts like they do say that certain parts like Java and in other areas, the Kalinga traders and probably the missionaries, the religious missionaries were the first to set up colonies there and also build temples. So that is very true. So it has to come. The problem now is that the cities, the old cities we have like Puri and Bhubaneswar and Cuttack and even this Palur. Now, so many buildings have come over the city. It's very difficult to dig below them. Like we have our cities, Madurai and Kanchipuram. It's just not possible to do archaeological digging within the city because every inch is occupied. So we cannot get those layers of occupation below. So you'll have to go a bit away from the cities and try other areas. Like for example, around Tirunelveli, around Madurai, there are a lot of architectural, archaeological sites where they're digging. And they've got a lot of information. But the main civilization, the main city was buried under our existing cities.
And sir, yes, Kalinga's reach was actually was a more of a soft power, like a more a holistic reach and interaction, because of which uh, the the existence of Kalinga's little here and there echoes and imprints have stayed on. It was never a fight or anything. It was more through the trade, cultural, and the mutual exchange of everything like that. So anyway, we'll take up the next question. I see Soumya's hand raised. So please, Soumya, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Annie. Sir, so couple of questions, couple of observations. As you were already discussing about the Kling word, and then also as you were rightly saying about Bali Yatra, actually that festival in Odisha is known as Boito Mandana. Boito is dip and Mandana is saying see off or wishing auspicious things for that send off. And then see a similar kind of festivals you can find all around Southeast Asia. And that is one observation. And then second thing is that coming back again to Kalinga and Tamil relationships, somewhere I have read, I think Pritani can better explain this. In ancient Tamil, Kalingam means cloths. Is it true? Means cloths or sari or something like that?
Cotton.
Cotton. If it is true, then I mean, what is the significance of it? And also, there is one text where they have mentioned the Pallavas or the Pandyans. I'm forgetting. They used to trade this thing, trade cloth with the pata or the Ittat sarees with Kalingan merchants and take it all the way to Rome. Apart from this, have you come across any other mention of this kind of direct trade relationship? I mean, we were from last 1 hour discussing about the indirect relationships with South. I mean, Kalinga's relationship with Southeast Asia, then Tamil Nadu's relationship with Southeast Asia. But apart from the conflicts and royal relationships, have you come across any this kind of business relationship or common relationship, common person relationship of both the ancient powers? That will be my question. Thank you.
Sir, what Soumya was referring to was a mention from a book called The Tamils 1800 Years Ago by V. Kanakasabai. It was published around. Sir, can you hear me?
Agya.
Raghavan sir, can you hear me? I think sir's screen was frozen.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
can hear you. Yeah.
Soumya's
For a time, my internet gave problems. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So what Soumya was
I could not hear that whole question properly. Yeah.
Soumya's question was about
Yeah.
the ancient Tamil word called Kalingam, where the Kalingam meant textiles of any fine textile. So what it was about was like a mention from a book called Tamils 1800 years ago by V. Kanakasabai that was published around 1912 or 1914, where there is a paragraph where he has mentioned, like, that book is about the time of the Pandyans in the first century common era, how the society was, how everything was. And in that, there is a paragraph which mentions about how the Pandyans traded with the Nagas of the Kalinga region for their fine weaves and textiles. And those weaves and textiles that they imported from the Nagas was exported to the ancient Roman Empire that brought riches to the Pandyans. They filled their coffers. So that's why those textiles were so relevant to them that any fine textile were in ancient Tamil language, they called it as Kalingam. But now I think it's not like that. So I think Soumya was asking if any other references you have seen related to such trades.
Okay. Actually, sir,
It
my
is-
basic question was we were discussing about either indirect relationships, means Kalingan relationship with the Southeast Asian islands, and then the Tamil Nadu's relationship with them, or the royal relationships, Kolatunga Chola, Chodonga Deva, and other stuff. Even initially, I was talking about Kapilendra Deva, the royal relationship. But trade relationship between both the state directly, and then common relationship, cultural exchange. Have you come across anything like this? I mean, this is just one point we came across in our way of research, but is there any other stuff you have came across during your course of research or otherwise? Yeah.
See, if you are talking about Tamil literature, I am not aware of this Kalingam meaning textiles. Kalingam means Kalinga in Tamil. Okay, we call it Kalingam. So
Sir, actually, that term was taken from the book, like Pitani was saying, by a book named Tamils 1800 years ago by V. Kanagasabai. That's the
yeah,
book
so
from
that
we came
means
to that. Yeah.
yeah, so he is describing about the Sangam poems, and Sangam poems have mentioned like there are Sangam poems like Paripadal and Pattupattu and all that. They mention Kalinga many times. But I have to, I don't know for sure. I can find out, where they're mentioned. So if Sangam poems are mentioning, that means that it is somewhere in anywhere from 200 BCE to 200 CE, during that 400-year period, Sangam poems were developed. So now they are pushing it back and back. So that means that there was that kind of direct interaction between the Tamil region and the Kalinga region at that point in time. And the word Kalinga existed even at that point in time. What it actually meant, whether it is direct relationship, trade, cotton, I don't know. And more likely that it would have been the northern kingdoms, because during the Sangam period, all the kings were there. Chera, Chola, Pandya, everyone was there. And the Kanchipuram is the center of textiles and the northernmost part of Tamil Nadu, and therefore nearer to Andhra and Kalinga. So one can do some more research and find out what is the source, when was the first time that Kalingam was mentioned in Tamil literature.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Sir,
Soumya.
Nani, just one additional question, sir. Let's leave this word Kalinga alone or something. My question was: have you came across any direct other than royal relationships, any other direct common interest or common transactions between these two states, these two ancient states, basically?
Yeah, that is why the Sangam poems do talk about that
Okay.
the Kalinga region. So I have to find a compilation of that, where all it mentions and in what context it is
Okay.
mentioning.
Why I ask is because when there are two, I mean, ancient mighty power exist, they, with your neighbor, you will definitely have conflicts and you will
Yes.
definitely have cooperations. Without each other's, common transaction between two neighboring states, they cannot flourish. Apart from the royal conflicts or power dominations, shifting power forces. So I honestly believe research on this kind of constructive things that has happened in the past could have, can be done a bit more. That's why only I asked. I hope in future researchers from both the state will do a bit more research on these things. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Soumya. Any other questions or anything to say to sir? Please raise your hand. Anyone else? Sunil sir, do you want to add anything more?
No, thank you.
Because Sunil Patnaik sir is like he has worked for so many years. Just
Okay.
yeah, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? The last call, or you can just write in the chat if you want to. Okay. In meanwhile, if anyone is making up their minds, uh, what Sunil Patnaik sir was adding before, and you echoed the same things about how Kalingan maritime presence and even the Tamil maritime presence, precedes this particular period that you presented about, like precedes it by again hundreds and even 1,000 years. Actually, whatever in Odisha records or Kalinga context, in the context of Kalinga records, most of our maritime, golden periods where, like whatever mentions we have in other people records are from before 12th century actually. So if you see ancient Chinese, in the Tang codes of ancient China, people from Kalinga have gone there, like Subhakara Simha, Pragya. They went as, they were sent by the ruler of Kalinga of that time as emissary, and they stayed in China. And they learned Chinese, and they had carried valuable Buddhist manuscripts with them. And then they translated those into Chinese and many more. And they are few among, like two among other Buddhist emissaries who were going to China in those periods of time. If you look at Chinese records of Fa Hien, I Ching, Huinsang in their memoirs, they mention, exuberantly about Kalinga, and not just monks and scholars. If you see memoirs of normal travelers, that is a traveler called Wang Dayuan. He was just a traveler from China who visited a lot of places in the Indian Ocean, even till the coast of Africa also. In his memoirs, he has mentioned his experience about Kalinga, like when he reached Kalinga, what he felt. So 15th century, he's speaking profusely about Kalinga. And I'm pretty sure he has also mentioned about the Tamil coast, but I have not read his entire records. I have just partially read whatever was about Kalinga, about Maldives, all those I have written. Same thing if you go to Persian records, that is mentioned. So for us, for Odia people right now, many of our what you can say is corroborating evidences we find in other people's records, apart from our archaeological findings or epigraphic studies and other things. So in the future, hopefully these will also be equally important in establishing a overall a rough idea how it was. It was never a linear history. Lot of things affected each other, right? So hopefully in the future, most historians and researchers will have a more corroborating history of the entire Indian subcontinent, not just regional, pieces of who is greater. No one is greater. Everyone has their importance. That's what I was just hope. We hope to see it in the future, hopefully.
That's true. That's true.
Please,
Yeah, we have records of embassies from the Cholas, particularly because the Chinese have recorded that, and the historian Karashima, they have translated, and also people like Herman Kulke and others, they have translated some of these trade records with China, and I'm sure that I've not looked at the Kalinga part, whether they have documents, agreements with the Chinese. Second, and also the kind of pottery that came from China, which is not 2000 years back. When you dig up, they have found a lot of places where Chinese pottery and Chinese coins have been found in South India, and both in the Tamil region. So that is again one evidence that trade was there, such a long period, and you can get some idea of what was imported and what was exported. And the kind of, I would say that on the whole, if you look at all these things, including sending embassies to China, sending ships and all that, Kalinga and Tamil Nadu have a common history, Orissa and Tamil Nadu, because they were together, they are neighbors, they had the same interests. So the trade was using the same routes. So therefore, a lot of interaction must have been there, and it will become more and more evident as we go on.
Sir, I personally feel all these boiters, like people calling the boiters, the ships, I think the boiters of the Sadhavas had a very mixed type of population on that. I don't think they were only Odia speaking, sailors or people who
Yeah.
were, it is just like how shipping industries today. So there must have been people from different parts of the coast who like came together to finish the entire sailing. So whatever the ruler, whoever the ruler changed, whatever changed, but the people who actually
Yeah.
sailed and all, they had a common interest. The guilds had merchant guilds, and you were asking about merchant guilds. We do have inscriptional records of merchant guilds from Somavanshi Janmejas period and even Ganga periods about merchant guilds also in Odisha, just like how in South India. So we do have, and yes, and there was an ancient Persian geographer and scholar who mentions about a great queen of Odisha. They mention her as the
Okay.
Rania, whose kingdom has the highest elephants, the largest elephants. So yeah, like for us, because our focus is Kalinga, we try and find out about Kalinga. So like that, if everyone's thing comes together, we will get a better picture of our entire Bharatvarsh. So
Yeah.
thank you, Vidyaji, for your comment. Please, anyone else? I'll read out Vidyaji's comment because I don't think she has put her mic on. Vidyaji, you could switch on your mic and say your thoughts. Till I can read it for everyone till then.
I'm asking her to unmute actually because initially I have made everybody mute. I think she cannot unmute herself. I'm asking Vidyaji if you can unmute yourself now, it will be great.
Am I audible? Sorry, I'm in
Yes.
the middle of something, so I didn't want to switch on my video. That's why I put it on chat. It is so important, the point that Preetaji said. I felt that it's not about who's great and, it's not about, we're not comparing who's great. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is all about, all that Preeta ji was saying about, the mention of our history in other scriptures and how to connect the dots. And then we're all on the same page about the history of this great Indian subcontinent. So, and of course, I feel that a lot more resources have to be allocated from the state level for research, serious research, which is missing, and also to make history a very interesting subject at the school level so that children understand the importance. Otherwise, history is generally seen as one boring subject where you have to memorize dates and names. So whereas it is such a rich thing and, it is so scientific when you get into real research. So I feel that there is a need for also allocating resources and advocating for more resource allocation. Yeah.
Thank you, Vidyaji. Thank you so much for your insight. Did you have any question for Raghavanji? Raghavan sir?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? I see in the audience Mr. Rajkumar, Vijay Iyer, Biranchi Narayan Rath, Tarani Sen, Patnaik, Vijay Kumar Swai. Anyone else has anything or? Okay. Sunil sir, Tale, like, can we just, if we have like 2-3 more minutes, what I was talking before to Captain Vasan sir about, I have uh, kept some resources while reading from JSTOR papers about the description of Kunlun pose. Raghavan sir, if you have read those similar papers, you might relate to that, or you can add on to that while talking to sir. I can share my screen. I was just looking at the
Sure.
document.
Yeah, please share.
Yes, so this is from the, like, this is, I have just copied it from a paper. So if you see this particular portion I have highlighted, they have, first of all, Kunlun Po in the Chinese language, they call any sea big ships which sail from our side of the seas as the Kunlun Po. And Kunlun was the word they used in the land that lay beyond the South Seas. Kunlun and Po, like, for me as just an amateur researcher, I feel because the way the Chinese language is, the way their phonics is, and how the words change when they decipher and write, for me, I feel it is very similar to Kalinga Boitas, but I might be wrong. But still, they are ships from India, the eastern coast of India mostly. So what they have talked about are like large ocean-going ships called Po or Kunlun Po, and draught of 60 feet 18 m, that is fast, carries 1,000 men and merchandise. Then they're Kunlun people. The ship is made from the fibrous bark of the coconut trees. They make cords which bind the parts of the ship together. Nails and clamps are not used for the fear that the heating of the iron would give rise to fires. Ships are constructed by assembling several thicknesses of side planks, for the boards are thin and the fear they would break. The length is over 60 meters. Sails are hoisted to make use of the winds. Ships cannot be propelled by the strength of the men alone. Then also they say here in 1178, one of the customs officer from Guangzhou, he writes about the ships from the southern country. Southern country again is, they refer mostly to the Indian subcontinent when the Chinese records write about southern countries. Sorry. The ships which sail the southern sea and south of it are like giant houses. When their sails are spread, they are like great clouds in the sky. Their rudders are several tens of feet long. A single ship carries several hundred men and has in the store a year's supply of grain. So, like, it like there are other papers about such things, if we, but since they don't mention a Kalinga word or a Chola word or something, we might, I personally feel we might think that they don't pertain to us. But if we think in a broader perspective, how the Chinese talked about us in those days, and also Chinese has many different dialects. So in that particular dialect and that particular time period's Chinese dialect, how they refer to our region's ships or our region people, we have to first of all figure that out properly. A person who is well versed in Sanskrit and few Indian languages and Chinese of those times, they can well be the person to be the resource for this, because we have only a limited knowledge of such languages. I feel the more research is needed, multidisciplinary research, but that the description of those ships very much corroborate to the etchings on Borobudur temple walls. If you see Borobudur temple walls, the way the ships are etched there, with the type of sails, with the type of instruments the sailors are using, those were the ships what is recited as people from Kalinga coming to Java, because Javanese have said that people of Keling were the first to come to us, and Java has Borobudur. So Borobudur has Kalinga ships on it. Now, if you see that, those type of descriptions we see in Chinese records here, but they have called it as Kanlun Po. We call Kalinga Poita. So I might be wrong since I'm just an amateur researcher, but we strongly need multidisciplinary research from multiple countries, from multiple disciplines, and serious study, not just amateur study. So these are just the starting points. Hopefully, we'll have more solid things in the upcoming years because we have great technology now, great resources now, and people with interest. So we'll see. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Thank you. I see
Yeah,
Captain Hassan's hand raised.
Ritaji, I just want to add that there
Ji.
is this book. It's showing on mirror image, but
Yes.
Nagapattanam
Kulke,
to
Kulke.
Swarna Dvipa.
Kulke, by
Okay,
Kulke.
it is by Herman Kulke,
Kulke,
yeah,
yeah.
by Kulke and Vijay Sakuja and all, in which some Chinese documents have been touched and put in the annexures, okay,
Ji.
of various trade documents and all that. There is also some chapters on shipbuilding and
Porcelain.
the different kinds of ships
Porcelain.
and how did they their astronomical their knowledge of astronomy at that time and the wind speed and tides and all that. And they talk about three kinds of ships, which are, one is a very fast moving ship but cannot carry a big load, the other one which can carry big loads like trading ships, and then there are these small cutters and dhows and all that. So and a little bit about how they are constructed. So this one is available on the internet. I can send the link, and that can be downloaded. There is a lot of information on. The whole thing is about the naval expeditions. This
Yes.
whole book, and several authors have written. So there is one level of one amount of information that we have.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, that is what I was
Look
just
at
saying.
this. This is Chinese pottery. It is 9th, 10th century Chinese pottery. We have lots and lots. Actually, we are getting lots and lots Chinese pottery along the Odishan coast. Actually, from Calcutta, Patna, there is a port in near Konark. We are getting lot, and this is from Palur. Now we are getting this spot. It's a huge number. About what Peter is saying about the boat, we have our own scripture. Like Kalingan temple, we have for boat building, we have our own scripture. And there are so many varieties of seeds. Actually, what you said, there need a serious research because it is what we are doing and others have done so far. It is only the haphazard manner. Nobody has taken up seriously because we are looking at some other part. We are looking at identifying port sites, identifying the archaeological, material culture that we are working. But we are the lone person. So more and more scholars should come forward for this thing. You see, in Tamil Nadu, there are so many scholars are working. For Cholo, they are going to Java, they are going to Sri Lanka, they are working there.
Right.
They are getting the materials from that museum, from that side. So even in Java, people are working so laboriously, so hard. They are getting materials from Indian side, but Odishan context, we are lacking this thing. We need some serious kind of research for this thing, and it needs a collective effort too, including collaboration with other scholars, scholars from other states like that. Then only we can get some conclusion. Thank you.
And amateur researchers like me, I'm just calling myself an amateur researcher. So, like our thing, we can just search into all the other people what they have mentioned about us because we don't have field level knowledge or expertise.
Yeah.
If we curate all that into one place, at least the scholars and researchers can work more into that then. So that I just trying to mention it from the Chinese perspective. Of course, as you said, we do have our own records. Yes, I had seen Cap. Thank you so much, Sunil sir, for showing that piece of pottery for all of us.
If you want, I can give so many things. It's a truckload of pottery we have.
Yeah.
Captain Vasant sir had raised his hand a little while ago. I don't see it. Did you have anything to add?
Yes, PT, this is with reference to what you read, regarding
Yes.
how the Chinese sailors in the 11th century, that you read, no, sorry, which century it was, 11th or 12th century, Chinese,
11th, yeah. Till
11th. So definitely those days, the Kalingas and Cholas also must have had a trade. I'm 100% sure. You
yes.
agree? They had a
Yes.
trade. I'm 100% sure they must have had a trade. The shipping must have been good, very good trade. Like what you're selling now, that ship would not be enough. The ship must have been very advanced and all. But what I feel, I know I'm not saying, because after 14th, we had a lot of invasion. India has been invaded. Maybe it could have been destroyed. Maybe all these things could have been destroyed. Because I went out to sea in 1971. For what I know was, East Coast, nothing. Only Chennai port was there. Chennai port means that also is an artificial port for which the Britishers take credit. As far as the sailors are concerned, as far as I know, the ancient sailors, to my knowledge, was Gujarat sailors. Kutch. They were the Asians doing the trade. But only for the first time I'm hearing from Raghavan, nice information. I heard from you, even East Coast also, Cholas and Kalinga sailors. It's new to me. Thank you.
No, sir. We have enough record. We have enough material culture also about the East Coast. Tamlipi in Ganga. It is north of Odisha and south of Bengal. It is the border. Tamlipi it's a long history of sailors, and we have good number of material culture from Rome, from China, from even we. We had opportunity to get excavated one site, that is Manipatna. There we get Burma thing, we get Cholo thing, we get Sri Lankan thing, we have Chinese thing, everything, including inscription, pottery. It is in Puri, near Puri. And now we are getting into Parlour war, and from there we are getting so many things, this Chinese things and the potteries, many things. So East Coast is not a isolated thing. It was the hub of all the Satavahanas of Andhra. Andhra Satavahanas is very brand new. They conquered up to Gujarat, up to Vidarbha, up to Maharashtra, then here also. Kalinga too, Cholas too. So this is a kind of business area. Business area. Whoever got the knowledge, they ventured into sea. And Odisha, the Kalinga people have a very good knowledge of sea, right from the days of Ashoka. Ashoka conquered Kalinga because of naval power, because of sea power. From 3rd century BC onwards. It is well written. It is well researched also, that part.
Yes, sir. And also, we do have records in ancient Jaina records and ancient Buddhist records of Burma that two, like Kalinga merchant brothers, Trapasu and Vallika, they carried the Kesha Asti of Buddha, Gautama Buddha, to Burma in those days, and they gifted it, which is still worshipped at the Shwedagon Pagoda. So, you're talking about the times of Buddha himself.
Yeah.
And even before Buddha's time, also in ancient Jaina manuscripts, also we have read about traders, and our eastern coast is always prone to like huge super cyclones, tsunamis, and all. So, in our present day memory, in our known memory, we have known coastlines change because of silting or super cyclones or tsunamis. So imagine our maritime heritage, which is more than 2000 years old, must have had so many changes. So our heritage is buried under the bay currently in the Indian Ocean. Much of it is under the ocean. So oceanic archaeology is also needed to know. A lot might be still hiding, we don't know about it. Sunil Patnaik sir can say much better about
It is the ocean. We are working with NIO, National Institute of Oceanography. Even we are working with National Heritage Maritime Complex. That is coming.
Sir's connection must have been unstable.
Yeah, we are not able to hear.
Sunil Bishwal sir, please take over. I think I'll just thank you, Raghavan sir, for like I also like spoke a lot. Sorry for taking up so much of the time, but we are really privileged to have.
Sunil Patnaik sir has joined, I hope.
Okay. So,
Sunil sir. Sunil
okay,
sir, Sunil
thanks,
Patnaik.
Sai. I'll give it over to Sunil Biswal sir. He will just take over. Sunil Biswal sir, please take over and.
Sure. Let me give a call to Sunil Patnaik sir. No, actually he has logged off. Maybe some problem at his end. Okay, now it appears the no further questions are there from our participants. So it is already 9 o'clock. So I do not know how much I feel like thanking Raghavan Srinivasan sir for accepting my invitation and then attending, giving the immensely knowledgeable talk today. I think our people would definitely find this to their to enriching to their experience, and if at all they conduct any research work, this should definitely be adding to their knowledge base. And also, I thank Captain Basant also to provide his insight and attending today's webinar. So I thank all participants who have been with us today. Thank you, Sunil Patnaik sir, though he's not there. Okay. And okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Raghavan sir. Namaskar.
Thank you so much,
And
Raghavan
Sunilji.
sir,
And,
1 minute,
Thank you.
please.
let my
Raghavan
friend
sir, 1 minute, please. 1 minute, please.
let my friend Sanjay give the concluding note. Sanjay, over to you.
yeah.
Raghavan sir, please tell us about your book, this book.
Yeah.
Something, please tell us about the book.
This
Chapter
one,
wise, first chapter, the great one who measured the earth. 1 or 2 lines on each chapter.
oh God.
1 or
I
2
don't
lines.
remember all the chapters now, but it was
First chapter
published
is
about 2 years back.
now the contents are maps
Yes.
and illustrations. Then acknowledgements about maps showing the extent of the Cholo Empire, Rajendra Chola I. Maps showing Cholo Mandalam in the 11th century. Chronology of principal events narrated in the book. Chronology of a chart of Imperial Cholo dynasty. First chapter is the great one who measured the earth. It is about whom?
It is about RajarajaChola because usually when they write what is the prashasti of a king, it is called Maikirti in Tamil. In Sanskrit, it is called prashasti, where every king they write when there's an inscription, first they introduce the king's birth and his achievements. So RajarajaChola, they used to write the king who measured the earth. So because he had conquered Lanka, he had conquered Andaman Islands, he had conquered Lakshadweep. So it is one a sobriquet which they gave.
You have started from Ashok the Great.
So
second
it is
chapter
a historical fiction and historical non-fiction, quite seriously researched. And again, there are books about RajarajaChola, but I have written it more from the point of view of the economy, politics, and that here also I discuss something about Southeast Asia and a relationship with this thing. So, and Sunilji, thank you so much and for organizing this. And it has been an excellent experience. I have learned a lot because we all know a lot. Nobody is an expert, and there's always some things to learn from all of you. So thank you so much, and thank you for all the interventions, and your own views also have added value to this discussion. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for today's discussion. Thank you.
So, good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Thanks, sir. Good night. Good night.